commissioned by Ghiyasuddin Khalji of Mandu and completed by his son Nasiruddin Khalji. So that was a time, within a brief period of 5 to 10 years, we have found a burst of activity in Mandu, which was already an important center of Jain manuscripts. She has shown some images from manuscripts of Jain subject painted there at about 50 years earlier than that. Now here again the impact of the Western Asiatic world, of the Persianate world is very pronounced, very clear. But there are elements in it. I have no time to show you the details, but one can see from that. Then we come to the world of the Dastan-e-Amir Hamza. Now we are coming into Akbar's court. Akbar, as you know, came to the throne at a very young, tender age of 14, but he inherited nevertheless an atelier, and where painters were already working. He also himself had trainings in painting, but as you all know, that he could not read and write himself. But nevertheless, he was not illiterate. He was actually suffering from dyslexia. Otherwise, he was perhaps the most literate and refined person of impeccable taste and creative sense of creativity, and amongst all the rulers. So he was very fond of the semi-mythical stories of the Hamza, the exploits of a prince of Sistan or a prophet or an uncle of Prophet Muhammad called Amir Hamza. So there were in all 1400 stories, and Akbar was very fond of these stories, and these were all illustrated for him by a group of painters led by those two Persian masters, Mir Sayyad Ali and Khaja Abdul Samad, and assisted by a whole body of Indian painters. So there, in some of the details we find that there are Persian details, of course, the overall flavor is Persian, but there were individual details that we have already noticed in India before. And these things were incorporated in a comprehensive style, which was leading towards a perfection, and that was to be continued for a long time to come. Now this is a vignette, a small detail of a painting of the Tutinama in the Cleveland Museum of Art, which shows how Indian elements that we have already noticed in other earlier Indian paintings from Mandu have been incorporated there. So here there is virtually nothing Mughal or nothing Persian, excepting the pigments. Now, this is another very important painting, because not only from the Western Asia, but the Mughals came from Central Asia. They came from Farghana, a small state in Central Asia, and they passed through Samarkand, the capital of Timur, which was the greatest city of its time. So Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, and from there they came to Kabul via Herat. Herat was the cultural capital, one branch of the Timurids after the fall of Samarkand. And Herat was also the place where the greatest Persian painter, Ustad Behzad, flourished. Now this particular manuscript is of course of an earlier period. It was painted, the original manuscript came from the court of the Inju rulers of Baghdad. And the text is called Jami-ut-Tariq. It was written by the Prime Minister of the last Caliph called Rashid ud-Din or Rashid al-Din. And fortunately, in Calcutta, at the Asiatic Society, there is one volume of that particular manuscript of Rashid al-Din's Jami-ut-Tariq, which is unfortunately lying unpublished. Just a brief note was published by Basil Gray many years back. Otherwise, that extremely important and very early piece of Islamic art is lying neglected. But this particular manuscript is lying in the Raza Library in Rampur. And in Rampur, this particular manuscript, because there those who were inquiring about calligraphy, you could see the calligraphy there is Naskh of the 14th, late 14th and early 15th century. And the particular manuscript is a large size one of the Jami-ul Tarikh volumes, which was acquired by Akbar in a damaged condition. And then he entrusted it to his painters to revive, to repaint some of the pages. And this is one of the pages, where the original composition is maintained, but new faces and new details have been added. So my purpose of showing this is to show that how Akbar was interested to collect earlier materials. When he collected this manuscript, he was already almost 250 years old. Now this is a creation of Humayun's court in Kabul, when Humayun was waiting for his chance to come back to India around 1552-3. And this is the work of a great Persian master called Dust Muhammad. It shows Humayun at the bottom part sitting with his brothers and examining a miniature painting. But the entire details and the compositions are totally un-Indian. They are 100% Persian in their outlook, but we have seen some of the details in earlier manuscripts at Mandu. Especially, I have not shown you any visual, but there is a manuscript in the National Museum which is based on the Timurid tradition, dated 1503, created in Mandu. Now, this particular painting is perhaps the first painting where the Mughal painters have tried to attempt at portraiture. Now we are coming to the most developed phase about 30 or 40 years later than the earlier image. So this particular one shows that this is a visual from the famous Akbarnama manuscript at the Victoria and Albert Museum. It's a sign painting, and as I told you that Akbar introduced this system of having the names. So here we find that the name of the painter is given, and in red ink, obviously by the court clerk. It's not a signature of the artist. There are examples with signature, but court clerk are very authentic because depending on the noting of these, Akbar used to give reward. He examined the work of his painters every week, and he used to give rewards to those accepting, in addition to their usual salary, at the quality of the work that pleased him. So here it is, and plus also some of the details noted here. So the painting is a full-page work. There is no intervention of any manuscript passages, and it shows the work of a new group of painters who came to Akbar's court. The first group came with Humayun. That was in 1555. But this particular group came 30 years later, and they came not only from Persia, but also from Central Asia, from Herat or Mashhad. Now, Farruch Beg here has introduced another new way of Herati style, but again integrated quickly in the Mughal studio. Now, this is a page of about same time between 1585 and 1590, and this is a page from the Harivamsha. And I may remind you that Akbar was the first Islamic king to commission the translation of the entire Mahabharata and the Ramayana and the Harivamsha Purana and other important Hindu religious texts, because his purpose was to win the hearts of his subjects. At least that is the purpose noted by his biographer Abul Fazl. He has mentioned that what was the reason why Akbar became interested in Ramayana and Mahabharata, the great Hindu epics. And it was quite a Herculean task to translate such a huge text. So he recruited scholars from all over the country. And there were Persian scholars who were knowledgeable in local dialect, but not necessarily in Sanskrit. So the translation was also done, and I will just give you just one or two details about that. That when in the Ibadat Khana discussions it was decided that Akbar wants to know the essence of these two great epics. And his purpose was to know the religion, the religious practices, the rites and rituals, of his subjects. And he believed that the king can never reach the heart of his subjects unless he is conscious and he is aware of them. So there was no question of any forcible, conversion in his case at least. So ultimately, the group came and they discussed several evenings, and they could not come to a definite conclusion how to go about. Then Akbar personally intervened and told them that you don't have to do a literal translation. That is impossible. So the Sanskrit scholars assembled from Banaras, from South India, and from other parts of the country. We know some of their names, like J.B. Misra, Rudra Bhattacharya, and others, along with scholars called Sheikh Bhawan, who was a Southerner, but got converted into Islam, and he was a great Sanskrit scholar, so he was also there. And along with Akbar's personal courtiers like Abul Fazl, his elder brother Sheikh Faizi, and Mullah Seri, Sheikh Thaneshwari. So they were all, incorporated in this vast work of translating the Hindu epics. So Akbar explained to them that the Sanskrit scholars will tell briefly, the gist of the story, and then the persons who are conversant with both Hindustani or Hindi and a little bit of Sanskrit, like, say, for example, Abul Fazl knew a little bit, and Thaneshwari was conversant both in Sanskrit also, but not to that extent. So then they will render it into Persian. And originally, Akbar intended that Sheikh Faizi, the poet laureate, would again render it into verse. But it was found that it's a stupendous task and it would take a very long time. And Akbar was an impatient king. So the first draft was prepared within a period of 18 months. But the final text was ready within 2.5 years. And then, since Akbar could not read and write, he wanted the manuscript that was specially prepared for him to be embellished with paintings. And that's the reason the 3-volume of almost 1,000 pages of the manuscripts of the Mahabharata, which was given the name the Razannama, which fortunately for us still exists in its original condition in the collection of the Maharajas of Jaipur. And the 4th volume consists of the Harivansha Purana. And there, Akbari painters, most of them Muslims, but many of them also Hindus, sorry, most of them Hindus, but many of them Muslims, they created such great masterpieces of a scene of the Parijat Haram. And you would notice that the iconographic features and other things are also correct. But what a painting, because the entire episode takes place amongst the clouds, Indra, and Krishna there. So they have shown this, and some of the details that we find here, these are echoes of what you have already seen in the Tibetan Thangkas or in the wall paintings of Ladakh. So, Akbar had no qualms about it. All the details derived from the earlier sources were actively collected, studied, and incorporated. And that's why it became. Sorry? Yes. And there, what she has pointed out, I was coming to that, the European impact. Now, this particular detail is exactly almost a copy of a detail of a Flemish engraving. And Akbar also, when this particular work of the translation was going on, at the same time he invited the Jesuit fathers from Surat and Goa to visit Fatehpur Sikri. And the first Jesuit mission visited Fatehpur Sikri in 1580. followed by a second mission, and then by a third mission, which stayed at the Mughal court for a long time, led by Father Jerome Xavier. And they brought with them presents. And what presents? Amazing. The 12-volume set of Platter's Polyglot Bible, published in Latin and Greek and Spanish. And Akbar's interest was not necessarily on the text, but with the engravings, that were there. So he passed it on to his mentors who studied them. And then it was followed by other books, other printed books, and also engravings that came to the Mughal court. And some of these things were, because as you notice, these particular architectural details are also not Indian. So they cleverly incorporated all these things in their repertoire. Now, one subject I have already showed you in the earlier tradition, portrait or portraiture was already mastered by the Indian painters to a certain extent. But the other subject, which I did not show, but Dr. Doshi has already demonstrated in her slides, the emphasis given on the world of nature, the natural world, the trees and plants and flowers and fruits. And most of them were not necessarily taken from nature, but shown as a part and parcel of the natural world. So this is quite an interesting painting, which shows the golden background is there, which shows a plain tree. And the tree is, infested with a large group of red-tailed squirrels. But why I have chosen it, that Akbar, following the footsteps of his grandfather Babur, was highly interested in the world of nature. Babur, in his autobiography, has devoted a complete full section on the flora and fauna of India. And this 26-page section was described by Salim Ali as the first scientific study of India's flora and fauna. It's so accurate scientifically. His observations were so meticulous.